The wind howled through the alien desert, lifting waves of red dust into the sky. Caleb adjusted the cracked visor of his helmet, his boots crunching across the dry, rocky ground. His escape pod had landed far from the main wreck. Smoke rose, in the distance. His ship was gone. His comms were dead. Now he was alone on a strange planet, with nothing but a survival pack and his training. As he climbed a narrow ridge, a sudden shadow crossed the sun above him. Caleb looked up. She stood, there, tall, powerful, wearing armor made of dark metal that reflected the twin suns. Her skin was a soft gray blue and her long dark hair blew in the wind like a banner. A spear rested on her back. Her golden eyes studied him like a hunter watching prey. Caleb raised his hands. "I'm not here to fight." The alien woman stepped forward. "Then you are weak." Her voice was calm but full of strength. "You will come with me, human." Caleb didn't move. "Why?" "You have landed in Varkari land. I am Caressa, warrior of the high bloodline. You're trespassing. I should take you to my elders as a prisoner." "Or," Caleb said, reaching into his bag slowly, "you could have some water first." He tossed her a sealed canteen. She caught it with ease but didn't drink. Her brow lowered. "Is this a trick?" "It's clean water," Caleb replied. "I figured you might be thirsty after guarding this place." Caressa hesitated, then uncapped the canteen. She took a long drink, her throat moving slowly as the cool water went down. She didn't thank him. Instead, she tossed it back. "You are strange for a human," she said. "You do not beg. You do not run." "I've learned those things don't work very well in deserts," Caleb said. Caressa circled him like a panther. "You have no weapons. I have knowledge, tools, and a lot of experience getting out of bad situations." She narrowed her eyes. "Come, now." Caleb nodded, choosing not to argue. He could sense it. One wrong word, and she'd turn from cautious to dangerous. He followed her through winding rocks and steep paths. Eventually, they reached a cave entrance, hidden behind a fallen pillar of stone. She motioned for him to go inside. He stepped in and looked around. The cave was deep and cool, with supplies packed neatly in a corner. Food packs, rope, tools. Caressa must have been stationed here. "Sit," she ordered. He sat on a flat rock. She didn't sit. She stood across from him, arms crossed, watching him carefully. "Tell me, Caleb of Earth," she finally said. "Why do you speak with calm instead of fear?" He gave a small shrug. "Because fear is useless here. I crashed, my ship is destroyed, I'm not going to beg you to spare me. I'd rather earn your respect." Caressa laughed once, short and sharp. "Respect? You think warriors like me offer respect to strangers who fall from the sky?" "No," he said, "but I think good leaders listen before they judge." "Are you just a warrior or something more?" That question caught her off guard. For a moment, her proud expression cracked, just a little. She walked toward him slowly, stopping only inches from his face. "You ask bold questions," she said. "You brought me here. I assume that meant you were curious." Caressa turned away. "I brought you here because you interest me, and because I may need your skills. The land around us is unstable. Raiders sometimes attack. You may be useful if you don't get in my way." "Deal," Caleb said calmly. "But let's agree on one thing. Don't treat me like a pet. I'm not your trophy. I'm a survivor." She looked over her shoulder at him. "Survivor? You look soft." "I've lived through worse." Silence filled the cave for a moment. Outside, the wind picked up. Caleb took off his helmet and reached into his pack. He pulled out a protein bar and unwrapped it, taking a small bite. Then he held out another to her. She took it, sniffed it, bit off a piece. "Tastes strange," she muttered. But she didn't stop eating. Caleb smiled. "Welcome to Earth Snacks." Caressa didn't smile back, but he noticed her shoulders relax, just a little. He had done something she hadn't expected. He hadn't fought. He hadn't begged. He had offered water, shared food, spoke with reason. She didn't say it, but her silence told him. Something inside her was beginning to shift. That night, as the desert turned cold and stars appeared above, Caleb wrapped himself in a thermal blanket. Caressa kept watch, her spear resting across her knees. She didn't sleep. Before he dozed off, Caleb looked at her and asked, "Do all your people act like this with strangers?" "No," she said without turning. "Most would have killed you already." Caleb nodded slowly. "Then I'm lucky. It was you." She said nothing, but her golden eyes glanced at him, quietly, curiously, as if wondering what kind of human chooses kindness instead of violence in a world ruled by strength. The next morning, the red sun rose slowly over the desert hills, casting long shadows across the rocky ground. Caleb woke up to the sound of footsteps and found Caressa already up. She was sharpening her blade with a flat stone. Her armor had a few scratches, but her posture was straight and strong. Caleb sat up, rubbing his eyes. "You didn't sleep at all?" Caressa didn't look at him. "I don't need much rest. I'm trained to stay alert. You, however, slept like a hatchling." He smiled lightly. "That means I trust you. Isn't that a compliment?" She gave him a sharp glance. "Don't flatter me, human." He stood and stretched. The air was already warming, the heat rising fast. Caleb opened his small pack and checked his remaining supplies. Not much left, just 2 protein bars, a water purification strip, and a flare. Caressa watched him silently. "You won't last long with that." "I wasn't planning to stay long," he replied. "But it seems the universe has other ideas." Caressa stood and walked toward the cave's edge. "There's a river system beneath this land. It moves through the stones. That's how I survive. But today we must go above ground. My signal beacon was destroyed during the storm. If we don't reach a higher point soon, we may lose contact with the outer patrols." Caleb nodded. "Lead the way." They left the cave and began climbing the rugged slope. The terrain was uneven, the sun harsh, and sharp winds carried sand into their eyes. Caleb fell behind a few times, but he kept pushing forward. "You're slow," Caressa said, without looking back. "I'm human," he answered between breaths. "Our legs aren't made for leaping across boulders like yours." "Then adapt," she said. Hours passed. By midday, the sky turned dark with clouds. The wind shifted suddenly. A loud howl echoed across the cliffs. Caressa stopped and scanned the sky. "Storm." "How bad?" Caleb asked. She narrowed her eyes. "Bad enough to bury us alive if we don't move now." Without warning, a powerful gust slammed into them. Dust and sand exploded upward like a curtain. Caleb shielded his face, but he could barely see. Caressa grabbed his arm. "This way," Hidao pulled him behind a large stone pillar. They crouched together, using their bodies to block the wind. Caleb coughed, covering his nose with a strip of cloth. "We're going to get stuck here, aren't we?" he asked. Caressa nodded. "The storm will trap us for at least 2 days." He looked around. "We'll need shelter. Fast." They found a hollow beneath a ledge and dug deeper with their hands and tools, creating a small pocket to hide from the storm. It wasn't much, but it kept them covered. Inside it was cold and quiet, except for the roar of wind outside. Later that night, as the storm raged, Caleb noticed Caressa rubbing her knee with a frown. "You okay?" he asked. She said nothing. "You're hurt," he added gently. "It's just a bruise." "Let me see." Caressa hesitated, then slowly moved her leg forward. Her knee was swollen and bruised purple beneath the armor. Caleb opened his pack and pulled out a small bandage, activated the warming gel, and pressed it gently against her skin. She winced, but didn't stop him. "Earth tech," he said. "It's simple, but works fast." She studied him quietly. "You know how to treat wounds?" "I've been through enough crashes to learn." She gave a short nod. "Your people, do they always help others like this?" Caleb looked up at her. "Not always. But we try." Silence filled the shelter. The wind outside howled louder. Caressa leaned back against the rock, eyes half closed. You confuse me, Caleb. You have no weapon. You are not strong. And yet you act like you are, in control. I'm not in control, he said. I just don't let fear lead me. She looked at him again, studying his face. Your people must be very different. We are, he said. But maybe that's why we're here, to learn from each other. Caressa didn't reply, but she didn't argue either. That was something. They spent the next day stuck in the shelter, talking little but sharing food and warmth. Caleb used small rocks and vines to build a tiny fire pit with his heat cube. The warmth was welcome in the cold cave. Caressa shared a few rations of dried meat that tasted odd but filled their stomachs. Later that evening, Caressa asked, "Why didn't you fight me when we met?" Caleb thought for a moment. Because I knew I'd lose. And you were fine with that? No, he replied. But I didn't come to this world to fight. I came to explore, survive, understand. She was quiet for a while. Then she said, something he didn't expect. Most who meet me raise weapons. They fear me, or hate me. You did neither. Because fear isn't useful, he said, and hate makes us blind. She turned toward the firelight. Her face was calm, but there was something softer in her eyes now. Perhaps you are not weak, she said. Caleb smiled. That's the nicest thing you've said so far. She smirked. Just a little. Then her face returned to its serious look. We will move at first light. The storm should pass. I will take you to the high ridge. If your beacon works, we can call help. And if it doesn't? Caleb asked. Caressa looked at him with a strange expression. Then we survive again. The storm passed during the early hours of the morning. By the time sunlight returned, only silence remained. The sand no longer danced in the air. The sky was clear, but the land looked different, covered in soft dunes and broken rocks. Caleb and Caressa stood at the edge of their shelter, looking at the path ahead. We move now, Caressa said. Caleb nodded. Let's find that high ridge. They walked in silence for a while. Caleb used his handheld scanner to check directions while Caressa stayed alert for signs of danger. Her limp was still there, but she didn't slow down. Caleb offered to help her walk. She refused, as expected. After 2 hours, they reached the base of a tall ridge that stretched like a spine across the desert. From the top, they would have a clear signal range, if the beacon still worked. But something felt off. Caressa suddenly raised her hand. Stop. Caleb froze. She crouched down and touched the sand. Tracks. Fresh. Animal? Caleb asked. No, raider scouts, 4 of them, close. He felt tension in the air. Do we go around? Caressa shook her head. Too late. They've already seen us. Within seconds, shadowy figures appeared on the ridge above. 4 raiders, wearing dark armor and carrying weapons that looked patched together from scrap. They shouted in a language Caleb didn't understand, then began sliding down the rocks toward them. Caressa grabbed her spear and stepped in front of Caleb. Stay behind me. But Caleb wasn't planning to just hide. He quickly dropped his bag and pulled out 2 small light grenades, tools meant for distraction, not attack. He pressed the buttons and threw them wide. Bright flashes exploded to the sides, filling the air with bursts of white light and dust. The raiders staggered, confused for a moment. Caressa took the chance. She leapt forward with surprising speed and struck one raider down with her spear. Caleb ducked as another raider rushed him, but instead of running, he triggered a shock pulse from his glove. The raider screamed and collapsed. Caressa spun and blocked a blade with her arm guard, then kicked the 3rd raider into the rocks. Caleb used a rope snare from his kit to trap the 4th one by the legs, pulling him off balance. Within moments, it was over. The raiders were either unconscious or fleeing. Caressa stood there, her chest rising with each breath. Her eyes, slowly, turned to Caleb. You fought. I had to, he said, catching his breath. We weren't going to win if you did everything alone. She walked toward him. You use tools, tricks, tactics, he corrected. Not everything needs muscle. Caressa looked down at the trapped raider, then back at Caleb. You saved me. You risked yourself. I told you, he said calmly. I don't leave people behind. She stepped closer. For the first time, her expression wasn't hard. It was thoughtful. My people believe strength is everything, she said. But your kind survives through cleverness, calm, sacrifice. It works, Caleb said with a small smile. Sometimes, Caressa didn't smile back. Instead, she reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder, firmly, but not as a threat. You have earned something rare, Caleb. My respect. He blinked. That's a big moment, huh? Yes, she said quietly. But I'm not sure my people will understand. They climbed the ridge as the sun moved higher. Once at the top, Caleb set up a small signal node and extended the antenna. He tapped the controls. A soft blue light blinked. It's working, he said. Signal is broadcasting. Caressa stood beside him. Help will arrive soon. Do you think your tribe will welcome me? Caleb asked carefully. They will expect you to be weak, she said. They won't understand what I saw. What did you see? She looked at him. A human who doesn't fight like us, but still wins. They stayed on the ridge until the sun began to fall. In the distance, a patrol ship appeared, flying low over the sand. Caressa lifted her flare and fired it into the sky. The ship landed with a gust of wind. Warriors in similar armor stepped out, surprised to see Caressa standing with a human. One of them, a tall male with sharp features, approached and asked something in her language. Caressa replied calmly, then turned to Caleb. They want to take you to the village, to speak with the elders. Caleb looked unsure. And you? I'll be there, she said. But they will judge you, and me. Because I didn't act like a warrior? No, she said softly. Because I started to believe in something they never taught me. Caleb gave her a quiet nod. Then let's go. Together. As they stepped onto the ship, Caressa didn't walk ahead of him. She walked beside him. That was the moment Caleb knew something had changed between them. The ship's engines hummed quietly as it soared over the red deserts toward the Varkari village. Caleb looked out through the wide window, watching the rocky canyons give way to strange, curved buildings rising from the ground. The settlement was unlike anything Caleb had ever seen. Tall stone towers carved with symbols, open spaces filled with hard-eyed warriors, and children running between tents. Caressa stood silently beside him, her face unreadable. Caleb sensed tension beneath. Her calm. This was home, and whatever happened next would change everything. When they landed, warriors surrounded them. The leader, a tall man with silver hair and sharp eyes, approached Caressa first. Caressa, you bring a human to the council, he said sternly. Why? She met his gaze without fear. He saved my life. He fought beside me against the raiders. He is no prisoner. The leader's eyes flicked to Caleb, who kept his hands at his sides, showing he meant no harm. Your people say humans are weak, the leader said, his voice cold. Why do you defend this one? Caressa's answer came strong and clear. Because strength is more than muscle. He showed courage and wisdom. We need to listen to that. The council chamber was a circle of stone seats, each occupied by elders in battle armor. They looked at Caleb with suspicion and curiosity. One elder, an old woman with a scar across her cheek, leaned forward. Tell us, human, she said in a measured tone. What do you offer our people that your kind has not yet given? Caleb took a deep breath. He spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. I come from Earth, a planet far from here. We have faced dangers and survived through knowledge and cooperation. I want to share what I know so that both our peoples can be stronger, safer. Murmurs rose from the council. Some elders looked skeptical, others thoughtful. Caressa spoke up again. He saved me and taught me new ways to survive. I ask that you give him a chance. The leader stood. If you believe in this human, Caressa, then you must prove your trust. He turned to the gathered crowd. Caressa will defend her choice in the ancient duel. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The duel was a sacred tradition, challenging a warrior's honor. Refusing was seen as weakness or betrayal. Caressa's jaw tightened, but she nodded, I accept. Caleb felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Please don't fight for me. Caressa looked at him with fierce eyes. This is my battle, Caleb. You have changed much already. Now I must stand for what I believe. The duel was set for Ram. The next dawn in the village's great arena, a wide circle of stone surrounded by cheering warriors. When morning came, Caressa stepped into the arena, clad in her dark armor, spear in hand. Her opponent was the strongest warrior of the tribe, a giant of a man named Drakan, known for his unmatched strength and fierce skill. The crowd roared as the duel began. Drakan charged, swinging a massive axe. Caressa dodged with speed, striking quick jabs with her spear. She moved with precision, using strategy instead of brute force. Caleb watched from the stands, his heart pounding. The duel went on for long minutes, each warrior testing the other. Drakan's strikes were powerful, but Caressa anticipated his moves, countering with well-timed attacks. Slowly, Drakan grew tired. Finally, with a swift move, Caressa disarmed him, her spear point resting at his throat. The arena fell silent. Drakan nodded in respect. You fight with more than strength, you fight with heart. Caressa lowered her spear and turned to the crowd. This human is no enemy, she said loudly. He is a teacher and a friend. I ask you to listen to him, to learn from him, the Ao. Elders whispered among themselves. The leader stepped forward, face thoughtful. This is unexpected, he said. But your victory speaks louder than words, Caressa. He turned to Caleb. You have won a place here, but trust is fragile. We will grant a trial period of peace and knowledge sharing, but any betrayal will be met with swift justice. Caleb bowed his head. I understand. Caressa walked beside him, her armor gleaming in the sunlight. Later, as the village celebrated the duel's end, Caleb and Caressa found a quiet place under the stars. Caressa's voice was soft. I was trained to crush enemies, to never show weakness. But you have changed me. How? Caleb asked gently. By showing me kindness and courage without a blade, she said. That is something I never expected. Caleb smiled. That's because I didn't come here to conquer you, I came to understand you. Caressa looked at him with a new warmth. And that makes all the difference. The days following the duel were filled with cautious hope. Caleb stayed in the village, learning about the Varkari ways and sharing stories of Earth. Caressa was often by his side, watching as he worked to build bridges between two very different worlds. The elders watched him closely, sometimes with doubt, sometimes with curiosity. But slowly, Caleb's ideas took root. He showed them how to use earth plants for medicine, how to build traps that did not rely on brute strength, and how to use teamwork to defend the village. Caressa trained alongside him, her spear resting against the wall when she practiced new strategies that Caleb suggested. She began to understand that strength was not only in muscle but in mind and heart. One evening, after a long day of work, Caleb and Caressa walked under the vast sky filled with unfamiliar stars. The desert was quiet except for the soft rustle of the wind. Caressa broke the silence. I never thought I would say this, human, but I am glad you came. Caleb looked at her and smiled. I'm glad I stayed. She paused, her golden eyes reflecting the stars. I was raised to fear humans, to see them as weak, but you are different. You taught me that strength can be many things. He nodded. And you taught me that bravery is not just about fighting. It's about standing up for what you believe even when others doubt you. They stopped near a rocky outcrop. Caressa looked down, then back at Caleb. There is something I never expected, she said softly, that someone like you could change me without a fight, without anger. Caleb reached out and gently touched her hand. Because I didn't want to fight you. I wanted to understand you. For the first time, Caressa smiled fully. A warm, soft smile that lit her face. The universe is full of surprises, she said. Their bond grew stronger in the weeks that followed. Together, they helped the Varkari build new defenses and plan peaceful patrols. Caleb's presence opened doors between Earth and Varkari worlds, forging alliances once thought impossible. When it was time for Caleb to leave, the village gathered to say farewell. Caressa stood beside him, her armor shining in the morning sun. "You will always be welcome here," she said. "And I will always remember you," Caleb replied. As his ship lifted off, Caleb looked back at Caressa standing proud and strong. She had resisted him at first, but he had done something she never expected. He had won her respect, her trust, and maybe something deeper. The stars stretched before him, full of new worlds and new friends, and Caleb knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger story.